it has been a long time. It has been a très long time. But I have the video for this week. We are very sorry about last week, but it really could not be helped. We had terrible headache. Terrible. So I'm back now. We are back now. And we have a book. It is in fact a book that I did not think that I would do at all. But I saw at least 2 videos on this book in the past week, and I just saw, I think the universe is telling me to do this book. So, anyway, before we start, remember, if you would like to support us, you can support us on our shop, where we have books and writing services. If you want to support us, you can also support us on our Redbubble shop, where we have over 100 designs. If you want to support us but you do not want to spend any money, that is totally fine. You can like, subscribe, comment and share. That is how you support us without spending any money at all. So, what are we looking at this week? This week, we are looking at a writer that I don't think any of us was planning on doing. I certainly wasn't. You know that I do not do the 19th century particularly. But I saw, and I had to go buy a new copy because my copy had went flitted off somewhere over the years. We are doing the picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. So we were not going to do any Oscar Wilde. I was not planning. Her Infernal Majesty was not planning to do Oscar Wilde. But we saw a few videos about the picture of Dorian Gray. So thought, I have read that. Maybe it's not a tough book. It's not a long book. I'll try to dig out my copy. Turns out I don't have a copy. I have De Profundis, but no Dorian Gray. I used to have a Dorian Gray. So I had to go buy a new copy and read it to bring this to you today. So that is what we are doing. So this is a very popular book on social media. In fact, Oscar Wilde is very popular on social media, and I think that Oscar Wilde is very popular on social media because he is baby's first gay. He seemed to be baby's first gay, and this is baby's first gay novel. It is not terribly gay. I'm going to tell you that. I will spoil that for you from the start. Jono, far more gay. And they aren't even gay. It's just far more gay. In fact, her Laura will bring you, next book will be a gay book. Patrick White. He does gay. Jeanette Winterson, Janice has done her, gay. In fact, we have a lot of gay writers on the channel. We have an entire playlist of gay writers. Oscar Wilde was not my first gay. I grew up in the 80s. Freddie Mercury. And he's bi. You know. I'm just going to say. This book seems to end up baby's first gay if you are a particular demographic. I think conservative America, where people do not quite know who Oscar Wilde is. But I think for a lot of the rest of us, it is no longer the first one. So anyway, this is a Faust story, and it's an Irish ghost story. And it is very like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by his fellow Celtic writer, Robbie Louis Stevenson, who we have also done. Which is not exactly a Faust story. This one is a Faust story, and in fact, it is far more Faustian than I realized when I first read this, because I first read this when I was 18 or 19. Uh, and when you are 18 or 19, Oscar Wilde is far more interesting than he is today at 40 something. And part of this is because at 40 something, Oscar Wilde feels tedious. He genuinely feels tedious. This is part of the reason why I was not going to do any Oscar Wilde. The aesthetics movement is also pretty, is kind of empty. And that was what I always sort of feared in terms of returning to Oscar Wilde's work, is because I did not remember anything of them, it made me think, oh, I don't think there's much in them. I remember a lot of Tom Jones. I remember a lot of Jeanette Winterson. I remember a huge amount of Annis Nin. But Oscar Wilde, not so much. So this is his only novel. It is his only novel. Having read this, it could have been a novella. In fact, it almost is a novella. It could have been a short story. But it is a Faust story. Dorian Gray is a Faust. And when you realize that, it becomes pretty easy to work out who is who within that Faust legend. So the picture of Dorian Gray is the story of Dorian Gray, who is the subject of Basil, painter, this beautiful portrait that he paints of the 20-year-old Dorian, and Lord Henry. Lord Henry is a friend of Basil, and he is a person who has a certain reputation and likes to make quips and be very cynical about life. When you read the book, you realize he's all talk. He's all talk. By the end of the novel, it's not he who is divorcing his wife for infidelity. It is she who has got bored of him, taken a lover, and is divorcing him to be with her new man. He is all talk, all puff. But he sees the painting and he wants to meet the original. And Basil tells him that Dorian is this beautiful, innocent person who has reinvigorated his art and made him so much greater than he had ever been before, and that he begged Lord Henry not to spoil him, not to bring his cynical quality to this beautiful Narcissus. And Narcissus is probably the perfect mythological analogy for Dorian. Because like any Faust has to have a weakness. It doesn't matter whether he is wanting lust for power, wanting youth, wanting beauty, wanting love, like Stanley Moon asked the devil for love. The devil doesn't understand love. But Dorian is vain. That is Dorian's weakness. He is his vanity. And it is his vanity. What we see is Dorian has the qualities in him at the beginning of the novel that will corrupt him. He doesn't need corrupting. He needs a level of encouragement and a level of permission. And that is what he gains. So he sees this painting, and immediately he is so struck by the beauty of the painting, and he says that it is such a shame that he will get old and ugly and the painting will stay young and beautiful forever, and what if it was the other way around? because he has been talking to Lord Henry. And Lord Henry, as I said, is all puff. Because, every Mephistopheles is all puff. Every Mephistopheles is, I will give you this. I will tempt you. But the temptation does not work unless it work on the individual being tempted. Faust, a dozen other men could be given the same option and they will turn it down. Faust does not. Because, why? Because Faust is already along the road. Every depiction of Faust puts him already along the road. Does not matter whether it is Marlowe. Marlowe's Faust wants power. He wants to know things. And that is what Mephistopheles offers him. And so, of course, he takes it. Goethe's Faust wants to recapture his youth, to do the things that he failed to do while he devoted himself to his books. And so, that is what Mephistopheles tempted him with. Stanley Moon wanted a girl to talk to. And that is what the devil tempted him with. There is always a weakness. In this, Dorian is horrified by the idea of growing old and ugly. And so that is what he is tempted with. But it is not the in the power of Lord Henry. It is in this wish, some malign spirit, which is what makes this quite a different sort of Faust. So it's taking element of Faust, but also adding, fairy story logic, that you can make this wish and it happen. It does not happen immediately. Dorian comes under the influence of Lord Henry. He also decides that he is in love. He chances upon this poor little theatre in a middle class area. It's a pretty rough theatre. They're not very good. And he meets an actress, and the actress he thinks is marvelous, and he decides he fall in love with her. This is Sybil Vane. Mind you, she calls Sybil Vane. Wilde, you are really underlining some of these things. She is an actress, and Dorian falls in love with her for her acting, not for her. He does not care about this poor little actress. What does he care? What does he care about her? He cares nothing about her. And he discovers this after he has proposed to her and made her aware that he loves her. And she is in love with him. And then all of a sudden, everything on stage, she can't do anymore. Pourquoi? Why? Pourquoi? Because she see it is all fake. It is a cardboard set and fake words and an ugly old actor playing Romeo. She can't be it anymore. And she learns this, she discovers this right at the moment when Dorian has brought his friends and he feels embarrassed by her. His vanity at this beautiful thing that he thinks he has discovered. And she's nothing but a silly 17-year-old girl. She is not the great star that he thinks. His friends say she's very pretty, but she's a lousy actress. And this is the point where he after the performance, he break up with her so badly, so cruelly, that Sybil Vane ends her life. And this is the first thing that changes the portrait. And Dorian discovers to his horror that the portrait looks different. It is wearing his cruelty. His face is not. His face does not wear his cruelty. And this does not immediately cause him to sort of go down the tunnel of debauchery and corruption. No, he thinks, oh, this is horrible. I can see what I have done on the portrait. I want to get rid of it. And so he thinks, I don't care if she's not a good actress. I will make it right. I will marry her. What he does not know is she is already dead. And Henry comes. This is where Henry becomes a Mephistopheles character. Henry comes and instead of, he comes and tells him that Sybil has died. But he also tells him, what is that to you? What is that to you? It is the temptation of absolving him. And so when Basil comes, they are sort of like the cartoony, the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other. Is you have Henry whispering, what does it matter? What does it matter? Appealing to his vanity. And then you have Basil on the other shoulder saying, I thought you would have been so upset. How could you possibly have been at the opera and enjoying yourself? You said you love this girl. And she's dead. I sure she, are you not? And that is the moment. It is then when Dorian discovers, I can keep doing this. I can keep harming people and it won't show up on me. I can do whatever I like. He knows as the portrait changes, but he also realizes that as the portrait changes, he had to hide the thing. Nobody can see it. Nobody can see it, because even if he lived the life of a saint, it would still get old. And how do you explain that? So he hid the portrait upstairs in the top of his house where nobody go. And having consigned his soul, the visual representation of his soul, to the attic room, he then goes and lives a life of debauchery. Now, this is where I think that people misunderstand Dorian Gray, and this is why it's sort of slide under the radar of people. It is not the debauchery, which is pretty tame. I mean, you're reading this book and you think, oh, we're going to get the Marquis de Sade. No, you're not going to get the Marquis de Sade. You're not going to get the Marquis de Sade. The La Dame au Camille is more explicit. Of course it is French. It's more out in the open of what the debauchery of the characters is and what these things are. This, what is explicitly said rather than implied for the 18 years of debauchery. So this is the thing, is he started at 20 and by the end of the novel he's only 38. He only 38, which goes to say something about what Victorians think is old. He's younger than I am. He's younger than I am. I am the same age as a Dutch, or nearly the same age as the Duchess. She's the old lady. Victorians do not value much. Do not. You know, I mean, the Sybil is 17, so obviously if you're 47, you must be an ancient. This is why I do not read that many Victorians. No, I do not like being called old lady. Old lady indeed. Anyway, it's the 18 years of debauchery. It's sort of, there seems to be a lot of spending of monies and buying of things. There seem to be quite a few love affairs with married women. And this is the things that makes this kind of, even in the more explicit version of this book, which you can see what those changes were in terms of the notes, you really, really have to read between the lines. And it's heavily coded that he has affairs with men as well. It's not particularly explicit. It's not at all explicit. In fact, it's so heavily coded that if you don't know what you're looking for, you miss the whole thing to begin with, which I definitely did when I was about 18. I definitely missed the whole thing. Is very, very subtle, which makes sense, blah, 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 blah. So don't come at me and say something about puritanical Victorian morals and hypocrisy. I am very well aware. I'm very well aware of Oscar Wilde's personal history. But the book is not particularly forthcoming in what this debauchery is. But it is also important to realize when you read the book, it is not the debauchery that causes the changes. It is the callous disregard for other human beings. The debauchery itself is... Ik kan interessant. Okay, you probably shouldn't go frequenting opium dens. Okay. It is the destroying of people. We meet different people, men and women, whom he has ruined. Doors that are closed on him, reputations that are destroyed. One of the young men is in the opium den, Adrian. Alan, whom he calls upon, he blackmailed to make him do what he wants him to do. And what he asked him to do is so horrific that Alan ended up also taking his life. So Dorian changes, the picture changes, not because, oh, he have sex, or he collect things, or he spend money recklessly. No, because he is a vile, vile human being. He is a vile human being who damages people for his own pleasure and who excuses it. He comes up with every justification, and Lord Henry is always there to help him come up with a justification for destroying someone's life, or why the destruction of someone's life has nothing to do with him. Until the last one. At the very, very end, he thinks, I'm going to be good. Like the devil at the end of Bedazzled. I was so good, I gave that little loser his soul back. And he's told, it is the right thing for the wrong reason. It does not help. And to Dorian's horror, he discovers, no, you cannot just... I was going to destroy this girl, but I decided not to. That his vanity and conceit and hypocrisy become written on his face. He thinks, I can undo this. I can keep my life as it is, and by being good, I can undo this. Dorian, you have murdered a man. You have destroyed lives. You don't get to undo that without consequence, without suffering for that. Punishment is how you do that. And I think when I was reading this, it made me think of a couple of other things. So the Faust story, it very like Robert Louis Stevenson with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Oh look, I can be publicly look good and privately indulge in my vices, and that the tangle between the two destroys both sides. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are both destroyed. There's no way that one can survive without the other. And there is no integration because of that. Nor can Dorian, who looks 20 but is 38 and has lived the most debauched life, undo that. But it is not the debauchery. Again, it is not the debauchery. It is the cruelty. That is what makes him monstrous. Lord Henry is debauched. Lord Henry just looks old and is kind of sad and lonely and losery. People like his scandalous things that he says, but it's not living a life that is particularly interesting. You know. What is it that the Mephistopheles say when he turns up? Where I am, where we are is all in hell. Where is not heaven is hell. He's like that. He's not living any sort of great life. He's living the standard Hippocratic life of Victorian of wealth. He doesn't really care who he step on. The difference is he's not pretending that he's something else. Dorian is pretending he is something else. He is pretending he is angelic, while stepping on people and breaking them and being cruel and not caring. This is pretty much widespread across his entire class. You know, how do they get money? How do they get their money? By stepping on people. This is a world where we have, on one hand, we have these people, and then the other hand, we also have people like George Bernard Shaw. We have who is talking about we ordinary people deserve a dignity. They deserve not to be treated like garbage. Eliza Doolittle does not, she strongly objects to being treated like garbage. She asserts her dignity even when she is a nothing from nowhere, a crumpled little cabbage leaf, as Henry Higgins calls her. And it's by continuing to assert her personhood that she succeeds at the end of the novel in transcending being a transformed doll, and she become a fully actualized human, an equal of Higgins. And so this world is quite it has quite a few writers who are looking at different things. This is also, I have another writer that from this period that I wanted to look at, and that is William Morris. We will have a look at that. I was actually going to bring that, but I like I said, Oscar Wilde got the thing. Now, if you read this book with knowing nothing of Oscar Wilde, it wouldn't feel terribly gay. There is that too. It doesn't, you know, are we going to read this and pretend that that is what is causing this? No. No, we're not. That is not what he is intending either. So Henry is very well aware of what he is, and he's kind of pathetic. So This also made me think about the story in Cicero. The story in Cicero of the concept of if you were given a ring that gave you invisibility, what would you do? It's a morality question of how would you act if no one could see you? And that is sort of the thing that the portrait offers Dorian. No one will see the vices. No one will see the cruelty. No one will see what you make other people suffer on your face. The portrait will take everything. You will still suffer it. Because that is the thing. It's not that he is wiped free of his conscience. It's just he never shows it. So he is in sort of the intolerable position of having a bad conscience, but a face of an angel, which is not actually something that you probably want to have. So, you know, if the first time that Dorian noticed that the picture changes, if he was a good man, a genuinely good man, he would have done something to atone for Sybil's death. If he were a good man, he would never have pursued Sybil in the first place. If he were a good man, he would not have taken this as a license to do as he please. He would have become a little curious about the fact that he was not aging. But the portrait would not become ugly. Because that is where Dorian's vanity is mistaken. Not everyone has the privilege of getting older. Not everyone has the privilege of gaining experience. For one, I would not like to look and sound 20 forever. When I was 20, my voice was still sounded like I was 12. I would answer the phone and I would get asked if my mummy was home. This made my job really hard. I had lacked authority in my voice, which made the job hard because, let me tell you, children, they can tell that. I would not want to look 20 forever. There are things that you gain as you get older. And yes, they are written on your face. They are written on you. But you gain them, and people interact with you differently when they see that. They can see that. Getting older is not a choice that we have. We have that. And to get older, what is the alternative to getting older? That is not a great alternative. The alternative to getting older is not living. Getting older is writing your life on your face, on your body. It is going to happen. But getting ugly is a choice. Dorian could have remained the face of an angel. And his portrait could have just become a dignified, well-respected, good old man. He did not need to become ugly and cruel and vain and hypocritical and cynical. That did not need to be written on his face. He made choices for that to be written on his face. He became ugly through his own choices. He didn't have to become ugly. But having discovered that the portrait will take on his age, it will also take on his ugliness, and he can keep going for as long as his conscience can take it. which it turns out is about 18 years. And a murder. And a lot of ruined lives. So I think that reading it a second time, Dorian Gray is not quite the stories that people think it is. They think that it is the debauchery, the drinking, the partying, the drugs, all of this that is what destroys Dorian. No. He could have done that. He could have done that. It is his indifference to the suffering of other human beings, his willingness to use other human beings for his own ends, his own pleasure, his willingness to absolve himself from the harms that he has done to his fellow human beings. That is the thing that turns him twisted and ugly. And the ease with which he continues to do that, the ease with which he absolves himself. Once he absolves himself once, he continues to do so. And the fact that he kills his good angel and keep the devil is why he end up in the state of a Faust, a damned for all eternity, for selling his soul for something so frivolous and trivial. So would I recommend this? Would I recommend Oscar Wilde, to be honest? I think that Oscar Wilde is someone that you probably need to read when you are fairly young, or else have a tolerance for fairly empty prose. There is a lot of prose here that feels like padding. There's not a lot of characterization. I can't really say much about many of the characters, except Henry is the bad, and Basil is the good, and Dorian is awful. Most of the female characters are pretty vapid, which is quite unfortunate. They do not have a great deal of oomph to them. They are left to other people's whims. There aren't that many of them, which is ironic because his mother seems to have been a very formidable woman. So maybe Oscar had a few mummy issues. I do not know. But his depiction of women is certainly not the greatest of things. They do come across as a bit dim. The idea that women should only be pretty and silly and there to amuse, which says definitely something about the class that he's in, but they are not terribly interesting people to spend a great deal of time with. Fortunately, it is a short book. Lord Henry's witticisms get tiring after a while, so there's a lot of stuff in the book that does not exactly push the narrative forward, and it is why I read it and I felt this could have been a good short story. This could do with some cuts. It is clearly not Oscar Wilde's preferred medium. You don't notice the frothy nature of this sort of dialogue in a play. A play, like The Importance of Being Earnest, it's back and forth. It is just enjoyable to watch. It doesn't really stay with you. It's like foam. But you don't sort of start feeling like, okay, shut up, you boring man, because you have that a very different medium. It does not transfer so well to a novel as it does sitting on the stage. So I would definitely say this is not Oscar Wilde's best medium, is the novel. He did only write one. So there is that. If you are reading Oscar Wilde because he is a gay writer, we have an entire playlist of other writers. So if what you are wanting is something that is a bit more explicitly gay in his representation, and to be honest, Dorian Gray is not the representation that you want. He's a monster. He's cruel. He damages people. That's really not the representation that you want. Oscar Wilde was also somewhat cruel and damaged people. His and I know again you're going to tell me it's Victorian London and you're gonna me. He was in some ways cruel about how he engaged, and especially when the men that he was engaging with were of a lower class and younger. So there is definitely a power imbalance. Yes, again, I know Victorian London, blah 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 blah. But if they were young women who he were engaging with, it would be exactly the same problem. So it is again not the best, as we would say, the best representation. If you want something that is perhaps a little bit more critical, we have done James Baldwin, Giovanni's Room, where the point is the fact that the main character is cruel to him, is cruel to his lover, and the tragedy that results from that. For more positive representation, or not that isn't positive, but for more upbeat representation, you could try Jeanette Winterson, you could try, as I said, John or David Malouf, you can try Patrick White. There are many other writers. We have quite a few. I can't remember all of them, quite frankly. We have done quite a few, and we continue to do them. So I don't necessarily think that Oscar Wilde is the best one to start with. I think you can find more interesting writers. I don't say skip him. But he is. This is not really a story, a gay story. This is a story where that does feature a bit as part of it. It's not particularly explicit, and it doesn't drive the novel. What drives the novel is the fact that Dorian is absolutely cruel and vicious. So there is that. Is it worth reading? Yes, it is worth reading. I do think that if you are reading it younger, Dorian, I assumed that the story had taken place over much more than 18 years. That Dorian, it is interesting that having not aged a day for 18 years, Dorian is not, by this point, a man of 38, is not seen as some sort of a weird freak. He has been in society long enough. His youth and beauty should actually be causing him problems by that point. His contemporaries are all aging out. Even Lord Henry is old looking. He's 48. But never is a question that Dorian looks younger than he should. This should actually be causing problems. So I think you have to view it as an Irish fairy story, an Irish ghost story. It has as a result of the ways that Oscar Wilde writes and the sort of stories that he's writing, you do need that suspension of disbelief quite heavily. It is not. It is more so than Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you have we have this special potion and it does this. Okay, we'll take that. There's a in-story explanation for why we should accept this. I think that the internal logic of Dorian Gray does in some ways fall down, because it is just taken for granted that nobody is going to question this. One of the women that he has ruined says that, he's absolutely wicked and he's so distorted as devil to look young forever. But that is really the only thing that anybody says. There is so little. Everything of the story is so oblique and referenced at the edge until you get to the murder of Basil, that it has that logic of a fairy story. So, so long as you read it like that and you don't expect something with really strong internal logic, you should be fine with it. Yes. I think it possibly speaks more to the fears of a younger person, of getting older, because Basque being older than Dorian, it's like, what are you scared of? What are you scared of? Getting old. You should be so lucky. You should be so lucky. So, it does speak to a lot of anxieties that we see at this time, with the people wanting to look so beautiful and wanting to look, all of that sort of thing. But I think that overlaying that, the modern idea, youth and beauty and all of those things, continue to miss the point of it. The point of it is not the youth. The point of it is his cruelty. And the beliefs that being beautiful is innocence, which is a very Victorian thing. But you could look at it like that. I think that is probably, that is to miss the moral of it in some ways, which Oscar Wilde did say was a moral book, which is critics did not accept. It was quite savaged. But yes, it is in some ways a moral book, because it is about the fact that it is the cruelty that makes Dorian ugly, and that the cruelty is already in him before the portrait becomes a magical device, becomes Cicero's ring. The cruelty is in there. Basil and Henry choose to ignore it. The vanity and cruelty are already there, because he looked pretty. He looked pretty, so they choose to ignore it. And then it gets cultivated. Because you can tempt a dozen men with the same thing, and maybe only one will take it up. But those are the sorts of odds the devil plays with their Faust story. So there's another Faust story. I think we now are up to about 6 of them. We've done films, we've done novels, we've done plays, we have done so many Faust stories, and I still have at least one more. In fact, it's a film, and Caesar will bring that. So we do like a bit of Faust. Anyway, that is all from me. I do not know who will be here next time. I think maybe Hatta will be giving a writing update, so that is possibly who you will have next. We've been writing and writing and writing and writing very much. So anyway, until I see you again, au revoir
If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.